Very few games have the same prominence and mystique as the original Silent Hill 2. Regarded as one of the best horror games ever made, as well as one of the greatest video games ever made, period, it's also a game that's been tough to track down for fans and newcomers. For those who might only now be getting into video games and want to get an official, faithful version of Silent Hill 2, you'd have to track down a PlayStation 2, making it difficult to access. Or you could emulate, but maybe we shouldn't talk about that. This meant that even though the original Silent Hill 2 is one of the most acclaimed video games ever, some people just couldn't play it, making it a perpetual mystery for some as to why it's so popular. But in 2022, when Konami announced a remake of Silent Hill 2, it looked like newcomers and die-hard fans would have an opportunity to return to Silent Hill. Albeit, it didn't look great at first. Why was this project being given over to Bloober Team, a developer with a spotty record to say the least? And why should gamers trust Konami, a publisher that betrayed its fans by almost destroying this franchise in the first place? Yet, as the game came closer to release, positive word of mouth helped to alleviate some doubts. Now that it's released, and after having finally played this game from beginning to end, I can happily say that Silent Hill 2 Remake exceeded all expectations. Even though it's a game that made me shriek, sweat, and made me feel miserable, it's also one of the most memorable gaming experiences that'll stick with me for years to come. Hi, my name is Jay, and welcome to Good Games Dude. Now, I'll be honest and state up front that I've actually never played the original Silent Hill 2. I was only 2 when that game came out, and I just never had a chance to get around to it. But it's a game I've heard a lot about, simply because of its big reputation. And I think a lot of people are in the same boat as me, having heard a lot about this game, yet coming into this with an open mind, not knowing all the secrets within. That being said, I did come into this knowing the twist ending, but I didn't know how the game would get there, and all the complexities that came with it. But knowing the ending made my experience better. It recontextualized every single scene and interaction I had with the characters. And I could see all the little hints and signals that were laid right at the start, setting the foundation for the game's big reveal. And I can imagine that this is how many fans of the original felt playing this remake. Like Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, or Christopher Nolan's Inception, Silent Hill 2 and its remake are games you can play again and again and still uncover more depth and meaning. With subtle nods and small details of great significance, it encourages you to keep coming back to this nightmare. No matter if this is your first time visiting the foggy town of Silent Hill, or if you're a frequent client of the Lakeview Hotel, join me as I discuss why Silent Hill 2 Remake is a perfect video game. Silent Hill 2 focuses on everyday nobody, James Sunderland. After receiving a letter from his wife, who he thought died 3 years ago, James ventures into the rural and idyllic small town of Silent Hill, searching for her. Deep inside, he uncovers grotesque monsters scattered throughout, waiting to kill him. But he pushes on through this hellscape, all with the hope of maybe finding his wife, Mary. And along the way, he'll also meet other strange inhabitants, like the young, secretive woman named Angela, looking for her mother, the large-bodied, infantile man named Eddie, and the seductive Maria, who looks a lot like Mary. And the game only gets more bizarre as it goes on, as supernatural events continue to happen to the town. All of these characters are interesting in their own right, but the real star of the game is the town of Silent Hill itself. Silent Hill is highly detailed, with bars, stores, and hospitals that were once well inhabited. But everyone is now gone. All that's left are the bloody monsters that vaguely look human. When exploring the town, evading these creatures, the player will uncover rich lore and history behind Silent Hill, thanks to discoverable books and newspaper writings that help to bring this town alive. And that's part of the reason Silent Hill 2 Remake is so scary as well. Much like the town itself, the scares stem from all the small details. The thrills never get too big or bombastic, with very few jump scares and over-the-top monsters. Rather, the game relies on slight, uncomfortable changes, like a shift in music, dark lighting, or a subtle sound. And man, is this game dark. I'm talking sitting up close and squinting your eyes to see dark. I'm talking Game of Thrones, you better have an OLED TV kind of dark. This is definitely the darkest game I've ever played, but really, that's the point, as Silent Hill 2 Remake creates an oppressive, thick veil of shadow that makes you question what's beyond the light. But it also encourages you to get in close and admire its beauty. With deep blacks and gorgeous lighting, it understands how there can be beauty in horror.
What the hell is that?
Well, what do you know? A stroll in the rain? How romantic.
Visuals are one thing, but as most horror enthusiasts know, what makes something scary are the sounds. And this is another area where Silent Hill 2 exceeds. It features surround sound that works so well when wearing headphones, and soft music that you can never tell if it's coming from the world or not. The sound design knows when to sit back and let you stay on edge, and when to pounce and startle you. And I also want to praise the game's performances. Luke Roberts offers a nuanced performance as James Sunderland, who comes off as someone who genuinely cares about others. And as the game continues, and as the benevolent determination begins to wear it down, so too is that reflected in Roberts' performances, with subtle twitches and facial movements.
It's easier just to run. Maybe it's all we deserve.
We?
Me. You. We're all the same.
I'm not like you.
Are you afraid?
I use the word subtle a lot because I think that's the perfect word to describe Silent Hill 2. Most of the scares come from what you, the player, can't see. It comes from the fog and the darkness. When you hear footsteps, the game holds back, and you realize nothing was chasing you all along. And when you think something is going to pop out at you, it doesn't. Silent Hill 2 has an unnerving, never-ending tension that I've never felt in any other game. There are a lot of horror games that, after a few hours, don't scare me because I feel like I've seen all the game has to offer. But that's not the case with Silent Hill 2, as the game continued to surprise me with new, frightening scenarios to the very end that weren't cheap or over the top. It's terrifying and unrelenting, but that's what makes it so great, as I can appreciate all the creativity it took to make me feel this frightened. Don't let that fool you into thinking, however, that this game doesn't have any action, because it does. James isn't a trained soldier or some secret agent with acrobatic talents. He doesn't know how to use a gun and is defending himself out of fear. That's reflected in the game's combat. Aiming is unstable and imprecise, as James's hands sway and recoil heavily with each shot. James can use a wooden plank or a pipe to beat up monsters, but those swings don't always connect. James has to dodge and lets out a grunt with every single strike because he knows each encounter could be his last. But again, combat is not the focus of the game, and it's not how the game challenges you. As the game continues, it's up to the player to not only search for new weapons and ammo, but also search for clues to solve puzzles and find out where to go. The searching is the hard part. You don't want to unlock the closed door or break down the cracked walls, because who knows what could be on the other side. It's fascinating to play a game where the challenge is not something that you have to deal with in the game, but something you have to deal with in real life, as you muster up the emotional strength and courage to keep going further into the deep. Even though Silent Hill 2 has a lot of questions, it'll slowly drip feed you answers that'll also spawn even more questions. What are these monsters? Why is the town of Silent Hill like this? What happened to Mary? The game answers some of these questions, but not in the way you might think. And much like The Shining or The Sixth Sense, the ending is where all the answers lie. But even when you do reach the end, not everything becomes apparent. In fact, all that you know up until that point becomes upended, as the game becomes entirely recontextualized, thanks to the final revelation. It's an amazing ending that changes everything, and that makes you want to go back and see it all in this new light. And that's why the story is so great as well, as you want to come back to find all the secrets and details that lie within. Now, normally I keep my reviews spoiler-free, but for this video I have to talk spoilers because that's the fun part of this game. If you want to go into this game completely blind, don't worry. Feel free to skip ahead to the timestamp I've displayed on screen. I highly encourage you to play this game on your own and discover this game's secrets for yourself. Like I said at the start, I knew the game's twist going into it, and how James was the one who killed his wife all along. But I didn't know just how nuanced this killing was. I viewed James at the start as a cold-blooded killer without reason for killing his wife, and this viewpoint affected how I viewed him and every other character, as I realized not long after that everyone in Silent Hill also was, to some degree, a killer. Angela and Eddie are both killers, but like James, they have nuance to their actions. But I thought to myself, how could this benevolent man actually be a murderer as well? I knew early on that Silent Hill was James's form of penance for murdering his wife, but I couldn't see James as an evil person. Little did I know that there was more to the twist, and that there were other circumstances surrounding Mary's death. Mary was deeply ill, bedridden, and was about to die already, and James and Mary's relationship had turned sour because of it. James's decision wasn't as black and white as I thought, and it's up to the audience to decide whether or not James, Angela, and all of the characters in Silent Hill really deserve this. There's so many intricacies and subtle meanings that can be found in Silent Hill 2, but they are never fully explained or explicitly stated. And the game asks us, the players, to judge these characters in our own way. Every single person who plays this will come up with interpretations and ideas that are completely valid because the game plants evidence for every single one of them. Is Silent Hill a real place, or is it all in James's mind? I don't know. Does James deserve absolution, or does he deserve eternal punishment? That's up for you to decide. Is it all just aliens or a dog messing with us? Frankly, I can't deny that possibility, because it's in the game, and I don't think there's a true ending that is more valid than the other. Much like the best poetry, you can still keep coming back to Silent Hill 2 and still find new meanings and interpretations. And the gameplay and storytelling both work well together to show that the fog will never be fully gone. And that's why Silent Hill 2 and this remake are so perfect, as it shows that this game will be fully shrouded in mystery, leaving all of us to be searching and fighting against the monsters that could only be created in the darkness of our minds. I could get on this game for its camera, which can be tough to deal with, especially when fighting monsters in tight corridors. I could also get on this for some puzzles with obtuse solutions that don't make much sense. But those issues are on me, not on the game. In my opinion, the best games are the ones where the gameplay and story are married perfectly. What happens in the story informs what happens in the gameplay, and what happens in the gameplay informs what happens in the story. Silent Hill 2 Remake is a great example of this. The same horror and searching that the player goes through when playing the game is the same horror and searching that James, the character, goes through in the story. It's a marvel of modern gaming storytelling, but also a demonstration of how ahead of its time the original was. Silent Hill 2 Remake gets a 5 out of 5. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, feel free to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for even more videos like this. Check back again soon for even more on the best that video games have to offer.